Coming up next on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
Man, like Lemieux's right up there for sure. He's a big 6'5", but the finesse he had and huge man. But, in today's game, I think there's a guy playing now that could alter all of this. And he's actually playing in Edmonton, and his name's Connor McDavid. And he's a freak of nature. He is not big, but how fast he is. The game is fast, but he has another level of fast.
That was Brandon Morrison talking about some of the great hockey players of all time. The real West Coast, the horsefly strain, and his professional hockey career today on The Swing.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how's it going today? Thanks for stopping by the show. We are still looking to fill a few spots for the Stillwater School. Brennan talks about this today. He made a trip up there on the real West Coast. We will probably put a link in the show notes to that video. He's got a couple out there, but we've got a few slots left. So if you want to head over to wetflyswing.com/trips, TRIPS, just enter your name and email, and we'll follow up with you on to let you know what we have left. And then hope to see you on the water for some Stillwater goodness at Northern Lights Lodge. Today's episode is sponsored by Range Meal Bars. Each bar is 700 calories and fits easily into the pocket of your backpack, vest, or wherever you need. Range bars are made using only the highest quality gluten-free ingredients, and they are the most convenient and compact way to get out the door and on the river. You can support this podcast and a great local company right now by heading over to wetflyswing.com/range. That's RANGE. Range Meal Bars, a legitimate meal in your pocket. Today's episode is sponsored by Stonefly Nets, who is putting quality before quantity with their handcrafted custom wood landing nets. When Ethan designs your net, it's his hope and goal to help you form lasting memories every time you're on the water. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/stonefly right now to get started. That's STONEFLY. You support this podcast by clicking through that link to Stonefly online. Brandon Morrison shares his story of becoming a professional hockey player and how his love of fly fishing and fishing came to be. Brandon shares a story of the winning goal that he made that helped push Michigan to the national championship. This is amazing. Story and a goal, and we'll put hopefully a video of that highlight in the show notes as well. We also find out where some of his favorite real West Coast destination episodes have been. We dig into that a little bit and where he's heading next. And we also get an answer to a funny question: Vancouver or Calgary? If you're a hockey fan, you might know what I'm talking about. We get Brendan's choice. So this one is for all my friends north of the border. I've always been a huge sports fan, so excited to jump into this today. Here we go. Brendan Morrison from RealWestCoastFishing.com. How you doing, Brendan?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on here. We're going to dig into a little bit of what you have going with your program. You've got the Real West Coast TV show, which is awesome. You dig into a lot of everything in fishing, and you have some great fly fishing. I remember the last one I saw you had, I think it was most recent fly fishing. You're out there with the Spey, learning to Spey, right? And you're going for out there. I think, where was that? Was that up on the Skeena?
Yeah, I was on the Skeena, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're going to dig into that, your program, but you also have a professional hockey background, which is pretty amazing. We'll touch on that as well today. But let's start with fly fishing. How did you get into fly fishing first? Then we'll take it in the TV show.
Yeah, so the fly fishing for me was, I guess I was a little bit of a late starter with the fly fishing. My first memories of fishing were kind of with my grandfather at a trout farm when I was 7 years old. But fast forward to my teenage years, and it was actually kind of coincides a little bit with hockey here. It was my draft year, and I was talking to different NHL teams, and they would come and interview you, and just try to get a feel of certain prospects and if they'd be a fit for their organization. And one of my interviews I was playing junior hockey in Penticton at the time for the Penticton Panthers, and this was back in 92, 93. And I had a scout from the Chicago Blackhawks, Sean Deneen, come to talk to me, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go fishing? I said, I love fishing. Yeah, this would be great. So he said, okay, I know a couple, a couple streams and some rivers, a short drive from here, and we'll go fly fishing. And I said, well, I've never fly fished before. And he said, oh, you're gonna love it. So that was kind of my introduction to fly fishing. I was 17 years old, was the first
Wow.
time, and actually caught a couple fish that day on dry flies. And I was like, this is phenomenal. Like to actually, see takes on the surface, and I was hooked right away.
There you go. And where were you guys? Was that in U.S. or in Canada where you guys were fishing?
That was up in Canada, so just outside of Penticton, and so
Okay.
kind of in the Okanagan area. And there's a bunch of great stillwater fishing there, but there are some nice little rivers and streams as well. And we just hit a couple kind of hidden streams, really. Yeah.
There you go. And you are originally, are you from BC?
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, in Pitt Meadows. It's a smaller town, about an hour outside of Vancouver, kind of northeast of Vancouver.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, and I want to circle back around on, I got some good, some questions that I have. I'm interested in kind of the hockey, that whole thing. 'Cause it's pretty amazing, right? You're at the highest level there. But so let's keep it on the fishing though. So when does the show come to be? Is this idea just pop in after hockey, or have you been thinking about this for a while?
Yeah, so the show kind of again was tied into the end of my hockey career. I was a guest on a couple different episodes of Sport Fishing BC Outdoors with Mike Mitchell,
Oh yeah.
and did a couple episodes. And I was, just chatting with Mike on the boat one day, and about kind of life after hockey and what I enjoyed to do. And fishing was always a huge passion of mine, and I thought, I'd like to do something in that industry. And so we chatted a bit, and then Mike called me, a little while later and said, hey, listen, we're thinking of starting a new show here and branching off from BC Outdoors, and would you like to host it? And I said, Mike, well, I'm still playing hockey here. I don't have the time to host, an entire series for the year. And he said, well, okay, what we'll do is we'll get 4 different hosts, and you can do 3 shows. I said, okay, that works for me. So that was kind of the introduction to it. So I did a show called Sport Fishing Adventures for a few years. Co-hosted it with 3 other hosts the first year, and then 2 other hosts for 3 years. It was myself and Chris Burns, an ex football player that played in the CFL. And then I just had a bit of a different vision of how I wanted to do a show, and so basically just branched out, went off on my own, and started Real West Coast, and that was kind of the beginning of it.
And that's it. And so once you got out of hockey, pretty much you were just fully focused on the real West Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few other things that I do. Some commercial real estate with a group out of Vancouver called the Strongman Group, and I got a rental company in Calgary with another partner. So there's other things, but fishing is and being outdoors is my passion, and that's kind of where I kind of really feel my happiest. It's a place where, to me, so the kind of the premise of the show was, obviously fishing is a huge part of the show, but we wanted to kind of capture the whole adventure of fishing and not focus so much on just nailing fish after fish after fish. We wanted to make people understand, hey, there's more to it than just catching fish. Like, take in your surroundings, take in the trip to get there, take in the culture of the area you're in, look at the conservation of the industry. So it was this, kind of big picture, if you will, or 360-degree picture of everything in its entirety.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. And how do you go about with the show? It's one of the challenges that, sometimes you have is selecting like the topics, right? I mean, there's so much, because you guys cover not just fly fishing, you cover a little bit of everything. How does that look? And talk about that. So, and then how often are you guys doing episodes?
Yeah, so we film 10 episodes a year, and I would say we do 6 to 7 ocean shows per year and 3 to 4 freshwater shows. And those freshwater shows can be anywhere from, lakes to rivers. And we try to, like you said, we try to be well-rounded and cover a lot of different aspects of fishing. So we're not just purely gear guys. We're not just purely fly fishing guys. We like to kind of, you know, I guess kind of appeal to the broad audience again. But yeah, and that's the special thing about our show. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate to be able to go to so many beautiful places and fish different ways for different species of fish, and just very, very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, in one of those shows I know you went out to, and we've been connected with them, is the Northern Lights Lodge. And I was just talking to Curtis this week, actually. But so how did that one come to be? How did the Northern Lights? Because that's a kind of a unique area, right? It's way up in this amazing remote area.
Yeah, it's a spectacular place, and obviously, I did listen to your podcast with Skeed, the owner of Northern
Skeed.
Lights Lodge.
That's
and,
right.
Man, Skeed, I told him when I met him at the end of that trip, I'm like, Skeed, you need to write a book. Like, you need to write a book. He's like such an interesting dude. Like the stories he has of the mining and selling gold bars. It's crazy.
It is.
Like just like your prototypical like Northern Canadian bushman, right? Like
exactly.
But and it's funny you mentioned Curtis. I was messaging with him, last week as well. But so Northern Lights Lodge was, I do a ton of research online about different lodges, different areas to fish, and Northern Lights Lodge kept popping up as a unique place. And one of the main reasons was for a very unique strain of fish that they have up there, which is a trout called the horsefly strain, which can only be found in that particular area. And so I've never caught a horsefly strain trout, and so got in touch with with Skeed, and chatted with Curtis, and they were all for it. Yeah, come on up, guys. We want to showcase this. And they're kind of known maybe a bit as a big bull trout fishery, river fishery, stream fishing, rivers, but they wanted to kind of focus a little bit on some stillwater fishing that they had, because their region, the Caribou, is not, as well known as, let's say, the interior region like Kamloops, Merritt, Kelowna, that area for stillwater. So they were talking to me about, the stillwater fishing they have, and they said it's going to blow your mind. Like, you could stillwater fish out of a belly boat or a pontoon boat. And they said, we have this huge sedge hatch, mayflies, and you're catching, fish, stillwater fishing visually on the surface on dry flies. I'm like, wow, this sounds amazing. So we went up there and did that. And I'll tell you, that fishery blew my mind. It was everything and more than they advertised. And these horsefly strain trout, they kind of have like a golden hue to them. They're almost like a yellowish trout, but super, super aggressive fish. Like, you would see a fish rise, and if you could get your fly in the vicinity of that ring within 5 seconds, 9 out of 10 times you would catch that fish.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was like you could literally cast there and count down like 3, 2, 1, and then it was like a great white shark attacking a seal. Like,
right.
Like so aggressive. So really, really cool spot. Yeah, near it's up in Likely, BC. Is where their lodge is, and it's very remote. A lot of history up there. It's kind of got like the gold rush of northern BC, and they got all these back roads and a lot of history up in that area. So a really, really cool spot.
That is cool. That is really cool. Are you pretty big on the history? Is that something you love, like digging into?
Yeah. I think the older you get, the more you appreciate it. And that's a little bit a part of our the vision of our show again, is kind of try to educate viewers of certain areas we're in and give a little bit of a background if we can. I mean, we don't go too far into it, but yeah, when we get to areas, is talk to the guys, talk to the owners, and just learn about that particular area. It's interesting.
Exactly. Nice. Do you feel, I was thinking about this before, just kind of coming up with some general questions, but being in front of with the hockey, right? I'm not sure. I think you were kind of 10 years. Is that roughly your career?
Yeah. I ended up playing 14 years professionally.
14.
Yeah. So it was a good run. It goes fast, but it was a pretty fun job.
Yeah. Do you find that, I'd imagine just being on center stage, right? And center ice, right? I mean, you're in front of the cameras. Is that something like when you're in front of the camera, has that always been something that you've just been easy for you, or have you had to get good at that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I wouldn't say I love like being in front of the camera or being in the spotlight. I think most people that know me would say I'm a pretty humble guy, pretty, pretty modest guy, but I think it's just something that you get used to, and it just becomes a part of your life. When you're an athlete and essentially you're performing in front of, 18, 20,000 people a night, it just becomes second nature, right? It just, you don't really think about the crowd too much. You're just out there doing your job and doing whatever you need to do for your team to be successful. But it's a huge adrenaline rush. Like, you know, playing sports and coming out and competing and being a part of a team that sacrifices so much and watching how much your teammates pour into, how much energy they put into the team. And when you come out on the ice and you have, you know, a full building, I mean, it's pretty hard to replicate that in any other job in the world. But I've found for me, fishing and being outdoors has replaced that. I mean, that's kind of where I get my adrenaline rush. That's kind of where I get my excitement. That's where, I tell people when I first hook a fish, it's like electricity in the rod, and it's just huge adrenaline rush for me. So I think that's why I've really become so passionate about fishing and being outdoors.
Wow, that's pretty powerful to say. I mean, for most people probably listening, they aren't professional hockey players, and to think like fishing to you is you get a similar kind of blast, right? You get that similar adrenaline rush. That's pretty amazing to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah, I firmly believe it.
Yeah. What is just sticking on that hockey track for a little bit, what was, I know you had some pretty big moments, out there. What was one? Just give us a highlight, because for those maybe that didn't know your career, was there one big moment that you always think back like, wow, I can't believe I did that, or I was there?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things, like not even in my professional career, but I went to school at University of Michigan, and we ended up winning the national championship my junior year. So that's something that always, sticks in your mind. And it was a huge thrill. And then professionally, playing your first game. And I was fortunate enough to score a goal in my first game. And I remember my first game like it was yesterday. It's so vivid. I mean, a lot of other games, you remember certain instances in that, but there's just a few things that really stand out vividly, and like it happened yesterday in my first game. I think for like most guys, that would be one memory for sure. That's right up there. And then just the playoffs for me. That's kind of what you play for, is getting into the playoffs. And unfortunately, I never won the Stanley Cup, so I wish I had a great story for you about parading the cup around and fishing beside the Stanley Cup, but it never happened for me. But I think just a lot of great teammates over the years and a lot of great friendships.
What are I always think about this because it seems like, I played some basketball, right? And I know that the chances of make it to the NBA are like pretty much zero, right? There's only a few hundred people. I mean, it seems like any professional sport though, right? I mean, what are the chances, what are the odds of you or anybody making to the NHL? Or is it a little bit easier to get, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think there's been studies done where they've come out and said you actually have a better chance of winning the lottery than you do of becoming a professional athlete, right? So it's the numbers are pretty low, and it's interesting that I've coached since I've retired from hockey, and that's one of the first things I have a team meeting at the beginning of the year and try to tell parents is like, one word I would like you guys to keep in the forefront of your mind this year is perspective. And everyone kind of looks at me, what do you mean perspective? I said, listen, we would never say this to your kids because we're going to, push them when they need to be pushed. We're going to pat them on the back, and we're going to do everything we can to, allow them to reach their potential. But here's facts. You guys have a better chance of winning the lottery than your kid does of becoming a professional player. And they're like, what? Yeah, that's the reality. So have some perspective here. But at the same time, we want to do everything to help your kids get to the level that they can. So, it's difficult, but as a kid, you don't think that, right? Like I never thought that growing up. I always
You didn't. You thought the whole time you're like, I'm going to be in the NHL.
That was my dream, and you have to have dreams, and you have to chase them. I mean, my mom still has a journal entry from when I was in grade 2, and the assignment in the class was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And well, my answer was, I want to be an NHL hockey player. And so it was always in the back of my mind that was my goal. That was my dream. And that's what I put all my effort and attention into as a kid. And it was never work for me. It was never something that I didn't enjoy to do. I would, come home and in Canada, you got to remember, Canada, it's hockey is almost like religion.
Yeah, that's it.
It's the main sport. We have other sports, obviously, but hockey is the main sport. So, you come home from school, you gather in the cul-de-sac, you play road hockey with your buddies, and you play until dinner time, and then you go back outside after dinner and you play, and then rollerblades were kind of invented. And I remember as a young kid getting my first pair of rollerblades under the Christmas tree, and just wearing the wheels out on those things, like going out every day and playing on them. And it's just, I didn't need my parents to tell me, hey, you should be out there practicing, or you should be doing this. It was always on my own initiative, and it's something I love to do.
That's cool. Why so you went to Michigan? Why did you choose Michigan over any other college?
Yeah, so I was recruited there. I took a couple of different recruiting trips, but I really liked their reputation academically and athletically. They were a powerhouse. They had a great hockey team. They had a chance, to win the national championship. The year I was recruited, and every year I played there, they had, obviously, it's a football with a big house and 100,000 people. And when I got recruited there, on my recruiting trip, I actually went and watched a basketball game, and that's when the Fab Five was there.
Oh, you were there with the Fab Five?
Yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Nice.
So
yeah. Chris Webber and the gang.
Yeah, Webber and Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, Ray Jackson.
What was that? So that must have been amazing seeing those guys in person.
Well, here's the thing: like a kid coming from Canada, you have no idea how big college sports are. No idea.
Oh,
so I come from a smaller town, and I go into this basketball game, and I'm sitting like 3 rows behind the bench. And I remember, they were playing Notre Dame, and it was like alley-oop, alley-oop. I'm like, dude, this is incredible.
You're watching like 5 professional basketball players, basically, right?
Yeah, it was wild. So it was, it was just, that trip just captivated me. And I know, and their coach also at the time was Red Berenson, and he was, kind of the first. He was a pioneer for college hockey players. He was the first college hockey player to play professionally, and he had a tremendous career in the NHL. And now he was back at his alma mater coaching. It was just a good fit for me.
Gotcha. And just talking and I had this note too, that Michigan championship you guys won. Did you score the winning goal?
I did. Yeah, I did. It was we were playing against Colorado, and it was pretty wild. It was a tight game. We were a good team all year there, and we ended up winning in overtime. Yeah, 3.5 minutes into overtime, I was able to get a rebound at the net and pretty much had a wide open net. It seemed like slow motion. It took forever for the puck to go in, but yeah, it did, and we won. So it was pretty neat.
Today's episode is sponsored by Mavrk Fly Fishing. They make the lightest Euro nymph reel in the world, which makes your rod more sensitive, casting more accurate, and you can hold your dead drifts longer without the shoulder burn. This reel is so unique you may not even recognize it as a fly reel. I had a chance to fish the stinger reel with Jeff on his home river on the Truckee. The biggest thing that I remember is the weight. The weight really stuck out because you can't even barely tell there's a reel. It's essentially kind of like you're holding a rod all day long. I mean, it's that light, and when you're Euro nymphing, that is a key. And the other big thing I remember from that day was catching a fish on my first cast. Pretty cool to be down in that part of the country and have some great success with Jeff. Mavrk keeps things simple by offering a Euro nymph product line with essentials you'll need, from rod, reel, fly line, and leader system. Euro nymphing doesn't have to be complicated, so let Mavrk Fly Fishing get you started right now. You can learn more by checking out Mavrk's YouTube channel for some tips and tutorials. And you can also head over right now to wetflyswing.com/Mavrk to check out the good stuff they have going. That's Mavrk, Mavrk, wetflyswing.com/Mavrk to support this podcast and take a look at one of the most unique and efficient Euro nymphing setups on the market. Okay, back to the show. Well, let's dig back in a little on the show. So as you look ahead, I mean, how does that look? Like, what do you have coming? Give us a little heads up on this. I'm not sure where you're at with your seasons and what kind of shows we can expect.
Yeah. So we're heading into season 7 now. So it's flown by. So we've got 60 episodes in the can, and you can watch those on YouTube, and we also have our website. And my cameraman slash producer slash editor slash social media guru is Mike Bemister, and he really makes all the magic happen. But we're a good team. So we both research, okay, what do we want to do this year, and where haven't we been? We kind of collaborate and see early on we're getting to the point now where we're actually having some lodges reach out to us and are complimenting what we're doing and are asking us to come out there. So that's a good spot to be in. So, but this year, the only thing we have on the docket right now, which is going to be pretty sweet, is we're actually going down to Chile.
Oh, wow.
In April. So that'll be interesting.
Nice.
We've never gone to South America to fish. We've been to Belize for tarpon and permit and bonefish, and we've been up to Alaska. We've been to Hawaii. We've been to Mexico several times, but this is going to be our first time down to South America. So it'll be interesting. That'll be a fun trip. But we target a lot of spots up and down the West Coast. A lot of salmon fishing, a lot of halibut fishing. We've been to a couple other great fly fishing spots. Last year we did a double episode up at Northern Rockies Lodge, where you fly into Fort Nelson, BC, and then you actually take a 2.5-hour drive, kind of heading west on the Alaska Highway, and so the home base is at Muncho Lake, and from there they have 70 different fly-in access lakes that you can go fish at, and rivers, and it's remarkable. And the owner and bush pilot Urs is a tremendous man, and that's quite the experience. Like it's off the charts. So yeah, we're just putting it together right now. We're putting it together. Yeah.
Gotcha. What is the Chile trip? What is that going to be? What are you guys fishing for? Do you have the details on that?
Well, we're still working through it. I know when you go down to Chile, it's like you automatically think of the big brown trout and rainbow trout.
That's right.
So we might mix in some of the fly, but what they've kind of got a bit of a new fishery down there for salmon. I mean, they have.
Oh, right. Is it Chinook?
They have Chinook salmon that a couple of tributaries from the Columbia River, they actually took eggs and brought them down there the late 70s, early 80s.
That's right.
So, they're not native species down there, but neither are the browns or the rainbows. So those were all brought down. But so these Chinook were brought down there late 70s, early 80s, and now they just naturally spawn and return. So they have a natural return of Chinook down there. So river fishing has been popular for years there, but we've teamed up with these guys who are just really starting to downrigger fish for them. And so we're going to go down there and downrigger fish for salmon in Chile in the ocean. Nice. Which will be it's something that hasn't been done a ton before. So it'll be pretty cool to kind of, it's kind of a fishery in its infancy, really.
Right on. That sounds great. And you have a big boat, right? What's your boat you're on?
Yeah. We got a Kingfisher 3025 GFX. So Kingfisher is a big sponsor of ours, and they've been a great partner for, since inception. And so we love our boat. It's a great boat. We're spoiled, and we can take that thing anywhere. We've had that thing, 70 miles offshore of the West Coast, fishing for albacore, tuna, and it can handle any water. Amazing. So we're pretty lucky.
How does that do? Have you been I'm not sure what type of a boatman you are, but have you been in some like rough seas and dealt with that at all?
Yeah. Like the West Coast can get pretty hairy. It's
Are you pretty confident when you're in that, or is that this thing that you're kind of puckered up?
I'm confident in it, but I mean, smart, very calculated. I mean, you can't mess around out there. You got to be on top of the weather reports and watching incoming weather. But yeah, I mean, there's times when we've been out there with, you're taking water over the roof, and it's not a fun feeling. It's not a fun feeling, but you go about it the right way and take your time, and don't be dumb about things, and then you should be fine.
Yeah. Perfect. What about on your episodes? So are there any that stick out as like maybe some of your, I'm not sure if you look at the stats on it, but the most popular or episodes that really you remember out of these 7 seasons or 6 or 7 seasons you have?
Yeah, like we've been pretty lucky to get a good viewership, a good following. But just when you talk specifically about the fly stuff, obviously going up to Northern Lights Lodge, and those we did double episodes there. They were received very well. I mentioned Northern Rockies Lodge, did a double episode up there. Those are very well received. We did an interesting one here a couple of years ago at Nicholas Dean Lodge, where we were spey fishing, and I've only spey fished a couple of times, so this was a little bit of an education on how to spey fish, really, because I was essentially, being retaught the different casts and fishing up there. So that was fun.
Were you guys going for? Were you going for steelhead or what were you going for?
Yeah, we were fishing for steelhead,
which is not easy, right?
Yeah.
Not an easy species to go for.
It's they say the fish of 1,000 casts, or maybe a fish of 10,000 casts.
You did get one though, right?
Yeah, I did.
I
man.
think you did. And didn't he have a hole in his net or something like that?
Oh, isn't that Murphy's Law? So you put your time in, right? And so we finally hooked up, got a nice fish, and Dustin was our guide, and he went to go net the fish, and he nets the fish, and the fish goes right through a hole in the net, and I'm like, oh, are you kidding me right now?
That's
Like
right.
fished it 2 days to get this fish, and now he's through the net, and I can just see the line snapping or the leader snapping. But we got that fish in. We got that fish in. It was a beautiful hen. Yeah, nice chrome fish there. We did another episode, a steelhead episode here. Must be 6 years ago now. We were fishing with Gil McKean from West Coast Fishing Adventures, and we fished a couple different rivers up there for coho, and then also targeted steelhead as well. And that's a magical place, that Terrace area. I mean, there's so many beautiful areas in British Columbia.
I know.
Pitt River Lodge is a great location. Actually, in where I grew up in Pitt Meadows, but you can only access Pitt River Lodge by jet boat or flying by helicopter. And Danny Jarek up there, I know him. He's kind of like the steward of that river, but they got a lot of species of fish up there. They got resident rainbows, and they get huge bull trout in there too. These bull trout come out of like Garibaldi Park, and they actually go into the Fraser River, and they feed on oolikins when they come in like April, May. And then they come back into the river, and they're big bulls. Like you can get 12, 14 pound bulls in there on the fly. So that's a great fishery too. They got an awesome run of coho salmon, and so many places. I mean, you're really spoiled out in the West.
Yeah, I know the West is great. Nice. Well, that gives a little highlight on some of the trips, and it sounds like you've got some steelhead, you've got some trout. I mean, and also the salt, right? I mean, sounds like you got an equal amount of salt. When you look between fresh and salt, is that kind of an equal thing for you, or do you really love like this one over the other?
I would say they're pretty equal, to be honest with you. Like, each style of fishing has its own kind of specialties, right? I mean, with that being said, I do think it is very, very hard to replicate the feeling of watching a fish eat a lure or a fly on the top of the water. I mean, that's the ultimate, right? That is the absolute ultimate. Like, but I'm not going to sit here and say like, listen, I'm a snobby,
right? You're a
dry
purist,
fly fisherman, purist only. Like, I can't catch a fish any other way. Like, people say, what's your favorite thing to fish with? I'm like, whatever's catching fish. That's how I like to catch fish. Right.
You do it all. You'll do any type of fishing.
Yeah. But again, there's something to be said about the different styles of fishing. And when you're in certain locations and certain areas, then yes, there's times when I only want a fly rod in my hand. But there's other situations when I'm fishing. Well, if I have a fly rod in my hand, my chances of catching a fish are all like zero. Right. Like, I'm not going to catch a Chinook salmon while I'm out on my boat in the Pacific Ocean when I know they're a little deeper in the water column. I'm just spinning my wheels. So, I mean, I think it's
right tool for the job, right?
Yeah, the right tool. And I like to be able to have the ability to adapt.
I love that. Do you already have any interest in hunting?
Yeah. I do. Like, I never grew up hunting. My dad didn't hunt. So it was the furthest thing from my mind. And then, fishing was really what kind of consumed me from a teenager and through my early 20s and into my 30s. And then when I retired from hockey, I had a really good buddy of mine, Jeff Sanderson, who I played with in Vancouver, and our boys were now playing together in Calgary. He said, you got to come hunting with me. I'm like, I don't know, Sandy, I don't think it's for me. He's like, well, just come, just come for a hike, and you might just enjoy being outdoors. Well, I'll tell you, like, well, he took me down another rabbit hole. Oh yeah. Now my wife's like, really?
What were you guys going for?
We were the first time I went out. We were archery hunting for mule deer in Southern Alberta.
Oh wow, archery too, right? Jump right into it.
Oh man, it was ridiculous. So then, yeah, I got another hobby now, or another passion. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. Again, I get to spend more time outdoors. I love being out there. I love the physicality of hunting. I love, the intimacy of hunting with a bow. I mean, the amount of effort that goes into the preparation, your game plan, all these things. I mean, that's the challenge to me. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of overlap, obviously, even, you got conventional fishing, fly fishing, hunting, right? Everybody, we know a lot of our listeners, like half of them are hunters, right? And fly anglers. So there's just obviously it goes with the territory, outdoors.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle, right? It's, and I like to tell people, it's like, I invest in my lifestyle, and that's, it keeps me in good shape. It keeps me young. It keeps me kind of on being able to interact with friends and family. Like I have 4 kids. I got a son who's 21, and then I have 3 daughters, 19, 17, and 14, and they all like to come out on the boat. They like to fish.
Nice.
Take a couple of them, hiking and hunting. And one of my daughters doesn't enjoy it. That's fine. But 3 of my kids enjoy it. They love to come out. So it's just another way to spend time with your kids and kind of bond. Yeah.
There you go. Are any of your kids into hockey?
Yeah. So my son plays hockey. He's 21. He had a scholarship to the University of Wisconsin. So he's been there the past year and a half, but he actually just left at Christmas time to go back to play junior. He wasn't playing much at Wisconsin, so he's probably looking at transferring to another school. And then my oldest daughter plays soccer at Miami of Ohio. I got a 17-year-old daughter playing soccer here, and then my 14-year-old daughter plays hockey. So yeah, we're kind of a sporty family. It's always been a part of our life, and my wife was an athlete as well, and played volleyball in college and played basketball growing up. So yeah, it's a big part of our life.
Definitely. You mentioned a couple of players along your journey, or people you connected with who, when you were playing hockey all those years professionally, were there some pretty big people you played against? I can't remember your position. Maybe you could tell us what your position was, and then did you play against some other big names?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I played center. That was my position. And I was originally drafted by the New Jersey Devils. So the first time I walked into that locker room, it was, you go from watching guys that you admired on TV to now playing beside them, like Scott Niedermayer, Scott Stevens, Doug Gilmore, Dave Andrechuk, Marty Brodeur. Like we had an older veteran team, and a great group of guys. Over the course of my career, I've got to play out in Vancouver with Marcus Naslin, Todd Bertuzzi, Ed Jovanovski, the Sedin brothers, Roberto Luongo. I played in Washington with Ovechkin. I played in Chicago briefly with Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. Played in Calgary with Jerome McGinley, Mika Kiprasov. I was fortunate. I did play against Gretzky. I played against you. Yeah. Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Eric Lindros. So I was, those guys were all kind of at the same time. I overlapped with, Yzerman, Fedorov, Nick Lidstrom. Everybody. So these guys that I idolized on TV growing up, I got a chance to play against. So it was a huge, huge thrill.
What's that like when you're there sitting there across the ice from, say, like Gretzky or any of those big,
oh, man. I think the first time I took a face off against him, I think I, I didn't even think, I didn't touch the puck. I was just kind of staring at him,
Right.
So it is a little bit different. Yeah.
What is that about? Because it always seems like, you you talked about a ton of, Lemieux, all these players are amazing, but Gretzky seems to be that one guy that maybe stands above maybe not,
Yeah.
but right. What
Yeah.
is it about him, or even some of those other guys that just like, it's almost like I'm trying to get a feel for like why Gretzky, why does he have those records and all that stuff?
Well, I mean, just the way he played the game. I mean, the way he anticipated, the way he could pass the puck, and the team he played on in the mid '80s, the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, they were absolutely loaded with Hall of Fame
Oh, they
guys.
were. They were good.
And they scored a ton of goals. And for me, he was my idol growing up. I mean, there's other guys so there's other guys I enjoyed watching play, like Eiserman and Sakic, because they were all centermen. But Gretzky for me was the guy who I was kind of infatuated with when I was a kid.
Wow.
So to get a chance to play a couple games against him was a huge thrill. But you quickly learn, hey, listen, if I'm just going to stand here and watch these guys, I'm not going to have a job very, very long.
No.
You got to go out there and perform, and you have to compete, and you have to show that you belong. So it's an interesting dynamic. So on one hand, like you have this, again, I'm not going to say it's an infatuation because that's taking it too far, but you have a huge admiration for these guys.
Sure.
But you also have to, compete and trying to do everything you can to win the game for your team.
Yeah. And hockey is interesting because of the physicality. I mean, slamming people against the wall. I mean, it's probably changed over the years, but I mean, that's one of those things. The fist fights, right? I mean, throw down the gloves. Like, was that what's that like? I mean, were you ever in those things where you're throwing down, you're like literally trying to fight? I mean, I know some people didn't do that, right? I'm not sure what your career was like.
Right. Yeah. So to be honest with you, I avoided that at all costs.
Me too. I mean, that's exactly how I was. That was the one thing I always remembered, like growing up. I was like, you know what? I'm not big on fighting. I'm just not going to fight it. So you can do that. So you can avoid in hockey. You can avoid the fights.
You can avoid it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and the game is evolving. I mean, you don't see it as much today.
Oh, right.
It's kind of, so when I first came into the league in 1997, 98, I mean, hockey, if you go back and watch old tapes, it's almost like wrestling on ice, like very physical, a lot of interference, a lot of stick work. And then the NHL had a lockout in 2004, 2005, and they changed some of the rules. They wanted to get rid of the clutching and grabbing. They wanted to showcase more of the skill, the speed. And so they clamped down on all this clutching and grabbing. So after the 04-05 lockout year, so 05-06, the game opened up a ton. So before that, when you had, big guys who maybe weren't the best skaters, they could play in the league because they could clutch and grab and hold on to guys. While as the game kind of transitioned to a speedier, faster, quicker, more skilled game, I mean, you had to be able to skate or you couldn't play in the league. And we've seen that evolve from that point in time. I mean, now I watch hockey games and they're like track meets out there. I mean, guys are flying up and down the ice. A lot of skill, higher scoring games. So I think it's very entertaining.
Yeah, it is. That's really cool. And are you a big history buff on hockey? Like, do you go back and know all the old players?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I stay on top of it. Even though I retired at the end of the 2011-12 season, I still follow it. I watch scores nightly, who's doing well, who isn't doing well, and I try and stay on top of it.
Perfect. Cool. Well, I mean, we were talking, I had one, this is an old name. I'm sure you probably haven't heard of this guy, but you ever heard of a pro hockey player, Len Ronson?
I don't know him. No, I don't.
I think he was a smaller, I was talking to my brother about last night, we were at dinner and stuff, but he actually lived next door to us growing up.
Oh, no way.
We're down here I'm in Oregon down here, but and he was just like we're saying, I mean, this guy was a brute. You didn't mess with this guy, and, but yeah, he played pro hockey and I was looking at his career. He scored like 300 goals. I mean, like what is 300 goals? What is goals wise? What's a lot of goals to score in hockey?
I mean, that would be a significant amount. I mean, if you scored 300 goals in NHL, that's a lot of goals. Like, kind of like the Hall of Fame kind of, number. is kind of 500. But you have some
Okay.
guys that, he scored
What
over
did Gretzky
300
do?
goals.
What did Gretzky score?
Gretzky's got the all-time record. He's got, what? I do know
Thousands
this.
or something.
No,
Yeah, you know it.
goals, he's got 900 or 892.
Oh, right.
892, I think it is.
Yeah.
But assists-wise, he has more assists than the second place guy with career points has. Like, that's how
right.
over the top. So, yeah, so I think Gretzky ended up with like 894 goals, just under 900. And, has, like I said, about 1,800 assists or something like absolutely crazy. Like crazy. But you know what? Currently, Alex Ovechkin is creeping up. Like,
Oh, really? There's somebody out there creeping.
He's currently playing. So Alex Ovechkin, who I actually played with him in Washington. He spent his whole career in Washington, and nobody thought Gretzky's goal record was touchable. Like they said, it will never be broken. Well, Ovi is, I think, roughly 80 goals behind him. So he's in striking distance, and I never thought it would happen. But Ovi's 38, 35 years old now, 36. So, but he still scores, man.
Is that pretty? That's getting there.
It's getting up there.
How many years do you got when you're 35?
Well, I mean, you guys are playing a little bit longer now, but yeah,
40's an old 40's an old guy.
Yeah, 40, you're a dinosaur. If you're playing at 40 out there, you're a dinosaur. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the rule changes in 2004. You always see this in pro sports, where in baseball is a good example, right? I mean, you change something on the ball, and all of a sudden there's more homers that are like jacked out, and or steroids, right? Like the steroid thing, right? That like, but do you see that as like how the game has changed to more of a faster goal? That Gretzky's record maybe will go down because of that. Just changes in the rules. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think opening the game up a bit more for sure. But they've kind of been part of the evolution of wanting more goals, because they kind of went through this dead puck era where goal scoring was way down and fans weren't finding it as entertaining. So they actually modify goaltender equipment now. Like the goaltender equipment can only be, like the pads can only be a certain size. They can only be a certain width, a certain height. So they have some modifications there. But I think probably the biggest technology in hockey has been how far the sticks have come. All these composite sticks. Like back when I played, you had a certain number of guys that could really shoot the puck, right? And could like just bomb it. But now everybody can shoot it. Like I go watch my kids play, and all those kids can just rifle the puck. They can shoot the puck harder than I ever could. Oh yeah, they can just rifle it. Yeah. So I think the advance of technology with sticks has really changed.
Like, are they using like carbon fiber sticks now?
Exactly.
And stuff like that? Or is it still?
Yeah, like composite carbon fiber. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
And the cost of sticks, like, I remember again when I played when I was younger, you have a wooden stick, $20, be $30, and then you graduated into an aluminum stick, and you could use an aluminum shaft for the entire year. It would bend, but you would just flip it over, and then you'd buy wood blades, which were $10, $12. Well, now, like if you want a high-end hockey stick, like the top of the line hockey stick, you're looking at $350 for one stick.
Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah, it's expensive.
That's it, right?
Like not quite as expensive as a fly rod.
No,
right? Like,
yeah, exactly. $350.
But those things if you take care of your fly rods, it lasts you a lifetime, right?
Yeah, they do, right? So, in a hockey stick doesn't necessarily. You could easily break a stick.
Oh yeah.
Today's episode is sponsored by Togens Fly Shop. Togens Fly Shop provides superior quality products at a great price. They have also a great YouTube channel that you can check out right now with new fly tying tutorials each week. Togens also has you covered if you're looking for unique in-house products, and they also support many of the great brands out there that you know and trust. It's been fun connecting with Justin and the family over the years now, and it's been really cool. A great local fly shop. Togens is also offering their fly tying box, where they send out materials at a regular cadence where you don't even have to think of it. You just open the mailbox, and there's your Togens pack. And I recently made an order through Togens, and the experience is always perfect. They've got you covered if you ever have questions or need any help, whether that's a YouTube tutorial or connecting with them personally. Since 2005, Togens has been over-delivering on customer service, and it's time for you to check out Togens Buzz for yourself. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/Togens right now to check out their diverse selection of products today. You support this podcast by clicking through that link to Togens online. That's Togens, Togens. Okay, back to the show. Well, I got one other hockey question. I had Greg Keenan, my buddy up there in your neck of the woods. I asked him, I think you know Greg. I said, give me a question for Brendan, and he said, hey, ask him about Vancouver versus Calgary. Which one?
Oh boy,
talk about that. Is that a tough choice? Which one you?
Oh man, yeah, that would have been in the 03-04 season where we met them in the first round of the playoffs, and it was a great series. It was a back and forth. It was a battle, and it was a big rivalry, like two big Western Canadian cities. So we were down in the series 3-2, and Game 6 was in Calgary, and we got up 4-0 early in that game, and we think we're on cruise control. We're heading home for Game 7 here, so guys just kind of, like I said, put it in cruise control. Well, next thing you know, Calgary makes it 4-1. It's 4-2. 4-3. Now we're playing pretty tight. 4-4. We're like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Anyways, so that game goes into triple overtime, and and I ended up scoring to win that game for us to send the series back to Vancouver for Game 7. So now we're going home. We're in good shape. So Game 7, and we're down 2-1 late in the game, and or it might have been 3-2 late in the game. Anyways, we pull our goaltender, the puck's behind our net. Marcus Naslund kind of goes end to end. There's like 5 seconds left in the game. He takes a wide angle shot, and a guy on our team, Matt Cook, gets the rebound. He scores with like 2-point-something seconds left in the game. Oh yeah. So we score to tie that game, to send it into overtime.
Oh my gosh.
So we're like, this is meant to be, right? This is meant to be. Like,
this is your game, right?
Yeah,
you got the momentum now. You got the momentum.
This is the momentum. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we had a penalty at the end of regulation that carried over into overtime. So we go into overtime. Damn. And we just need to kill this penalty, and we think we're going to be good to go. But so anyways, Calgary scores and just ripped our heart out. They beat us at home in Game 7. And it was a tough one, man.
And is it sudden? Is that how it works in overtime? Is it like sudden death, whoever scores first?
Yeah.
Was that carryover penalty kind of one that you look back and you think maybe they could have let that one go? Or
no, it was a penalty. They had to call it.
Legit.
Yeah, it was legit. But that's the way it goes, like it's hard to win. It's that's why you play the games, right?
Yeah, it's not easy, right? You're in Game 7. That's probably, you're at the highest level. And this was playoffs too?
This was playoffs. Yeah.
Right. But God, Game 7.
That was nice. That was really nice of Greg to bring that one up again. I'll have to remind you. Thanks for bringing that one up, Greg.
Yeah, he's good. He's got some good questions. I'll let him know. We had a good, that is actually a great one. So again, with what you have going, do you see this? Do you look out at this? Are you looking ahead 1 year? Are you looking ahead like, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my time, kind of with the show or some type of show? Is that, or do you see yourself retiring from potentially the show as well down the line?
Well, I don't have any thoughts on that right now. I still love it. Like, I'm enjoying it. I can't wait for the fishing season here to kind of get going again. And, and typically for us, as you know, on the West Coast there, you can winter steelhead, but the stillwater fishing for us kind of starts in end of May when ice comes off, and that's go time. A lot of indicator fishing with chironomids, and that's kind of the kickoff of the fly fishing season out there. And you can fish throughout the summer depending on what elevations you're at. Obviously, depends on how warm or cool a lake is and how the fishing will go. And then so you kind of, the stillwater season has a little bit of a downturn in August typically, but then fires right up again September, October. But we have great river fishing in June as well at certain times, and then again in the September, October time frame. So it's it's a great spot. There's so many places to go in, and with Greg there, I did fish with him a couple years ago.
Oh, you did? Oh, cool.
Yeah, we fished. We were up at Corbett Lake.
Oh, yeah, you did the Corbett Lake. Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is a cool fishery. I mean, not a super big lake, but I mean they have a private hatchery where they stock that lake. So you can get big rainbows in there. Like,
were you up there? Yeah. Was Phil Roy up there as well? Do you know?
Well, I've crossed paths with Phil a couple times, but he wasn't fishing that lake when I was there. But I have seen him at shows and talked to him for sure. I mean, he's obviously a guru on the West Coast there, a Stillwater guy, and Brian Chan as well.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
These are guys that I've had some interactions with Brian a little bit, but just such a nice man. Like just very forthcoming with information, wanting to help people. Right. Like he's just an encyclopedia of knowledge, and he just wants to share it. He wants people to get better on the water. He wants people to learn, and you really respect and appreciate guys like that who are kind of, industry leaders that are in it for all the right reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Is that on your show, when you look at why you do it, is there like a one thing you think about, like the number one, because it is a lot, I'm sure it's a lot of work, right? Doing even 10 episodes, right?
Yeah. Like it is work, but again, I love it. And I really want to kind of project the excitement that I have onto other people so they can come out and enjoy it. And, part of the reason, or one of the goals of our show is to really, try to capture the attention of the younger generation, right? I mean, it's at times numbers are kind of dwindling a bit with younger kids getting involved into activities outdoors. And, so if we can encourage a child or a young adult to pick up a rod and get out on the water and have this experience, and then maybe pass it down to their kids. I mean, that's really a big part about what we're trying to do.
Nice. And it sounds like with your coaching, you're doing that as well with the hockey. Trying to giving a little back, right? That too is part of it.
That's what it's about. It's I've always felt like if you're in a position where you can help others, or you have something to offer others, and then I feel that you have an obligation to do that, right? I mean, it's just it's a part of being a good person, and putting a smile on somebody's face, or allowing them to have a new experience that they get excited about. I mean, that's to me is a big part of it.
Do you look back on your career just, in hockey and everything, just saying like, wow, there's all these people that kind of, were that person for you, like you're doing for these kids, the same thing. You had these people along the way that were like, wow, I couldn't have done it without that person.
Yeah. Like, obviously my parents, right, like raising me the right way and encouraging me to, when I put my mind to something, make sure you're fully invested in it, and buddies of mine who have a huge passion. Like I mentioned, Jeff Sanderson there, another good friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Walter Corioth, really took me under his wing and showed me a ton about fishing that I had never knew. And so I'd go out with him on the water, and whether we're, all kinds of different fishing, and just kind of showing me different things. Like, you come to a new piece of water, for example. Okay, what do you look for? Where do you think fish are holding? And as somebody who's just newly out, you don't think about these things, right? You just get out there, throw your fly out, and hope for the best, right? But as you get more vested in it, you actually need to break it down in order to increase your odds, your levels of success, right? How fast is the water moving? What's the color of the water? What's the sky color? Is it dark? Is it light? Will that influence what kind of fly I'm going to use as far as a color? So all these little intricacies that go into it really add up to success.
Yeah, no, it reminded me, Phil Roy, we have him on as a guest podcast host, and he's just did an episode which is like breaking down, you're new to a lake, here's the how-to, right? You come to a lake, and he broke down kind of the stillwater tactics to get it dialed in, just like you're talking about, right? That's the first part of it. Yeah, instead of jumping in there, where do you think the fish are at and all that. So I'll put a link out to the show notes to that episode. and anything else that we chat about. Maybe we'll get some highlights. That's the other thing. I'll throw in some videos. Do you have a few highlights out there on the hockey, like, or was your time before not as much YouTube out there?
I think there's the odd one out there. Yeah. I think a little bit. Yeah. So I think there should be some.
Yeah. Okay.
Should be some.
We'll throw some out there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Greg there real quick again. So yeah, we fished Corbett. And then we actually went up to another lake. We went to a lodge, Sky High Lodge, and fished High Heum Lake, which is another really fun lake to fish just outside of Kamloops. So again, there's so many options. But yeah, it's you know what? There's too many places to fish.
I know.
Right? So little time.
That's the problem we find too. I'm doing this program with Greg. We're working on the school program. We're setting up trips around. And that's always the thing. Like, we've done all these cool trips, but there's all these other ones we want to do, right? We want to go to Florida, and there's, for every trip you do, it seems like there's 10 or whatever, 100 more that you can't do. And so that's part of the challenge. Yeah.
Real quick, have you been to Florida? Have you fished there?
No, but I just had Bruce Shard on, and he is the man right down there. And Florida is one of the places. And we did an episode on it. He talked about the Grand Slam. That's one. We're probably going to set it up for next year, I think, if it all works out, and get down with him. But yeah, I want to get down there. I mean, gosh, I would take anything, right? I mean, bonefish, giant tarpon. You guys had some tarpon, right? Did you go for tarpon?
Yeah. So we did an episode in Belize where we got a nice tarpon there, about a 50, 60 pounder, a great fish. But I think I get asked that question sometimes, if, what is the ultimate, like, if you could pick one style of fishing or one fish to catch, and I'm a West Coast guy, I love salmon, steelhead, trout, but with that being said, sight fishing for tarpon with a dry fly is life altering. Like, right. It is,
yeah.
So you have your guide or your captain, and he's pulling up on his up top on the stand. And you got one fisherman at the front, and then you got your buddy usually on the boat, and you're all looking for fish. And it's like, okay, tarpon, like 150 yards. And then, the bow of the boat's, 12 o'clock. So you work it, okay, 3 o'clock. So you point your rod, the guy on the bow. You see him, he's moving left to right. Okay, I'm going to position the boat. So like your heart rate, man, goes from 0 to 180. And now this fish is moving, and those things, they get up 200 pounds down there, those big Key West tarpon. And now, okay, start your cast. Okay, drop it in front of him. Okay, bump it, recast, pick up. So he's barking orders, right? And your mind is just like, you got smoke coming out of your ears. And when you make a good cast and you see that fish turn, and you watch him come up inside, but the hardest thing is, being a guy, again, who fishes trout mostly. So on your hook set, you're so used to, okay, rod tip up, rod up.
Set.
Well, there, it's completely different. You just point your rod at the fish and grab your line and literally pull it as hard as you can, and do that 2, 3, 4 times, because those tarpon mouths are like,
that's right,
sandpaper, right? No teeth, and they're so hard. But man, once you hook a fish, it's like, clear the line, make sure your foot isn't anywhere near that line, and hold on, because those things can go to 0 to Mach 80 in like 3 seconds, and now they're jumping, and it's an experience, man. I highly recommend it.
That's it. Yeah, I think tarpon, it seems like tarpon, out of everything, it comes back to that. Usually I think tarpon is the one species, as great as everything else is. It's just for that reason. I mean, that is the reason, right? They're big, they're strong, they jump. They're like dinosaurs almost too, kind of, right? They're this crazy, the mouth and the eye, everything is just really amazing about them.
They're like a humongous herring, right? Like a West Coast herring.
Exactly.
The big scales, the big eyes, and the mouth,
Yeah. Are you going to be doing, once you hit the tarpon, do you have plans to go back and do it again, or do you check that off your box and you're going for another species?
Yeah, I know. I'd love to do it again. No, I'm up for it for sure. Would love to do it again. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Well, let's take it out of here really quick. Just had a couple of random ones to wrap it up, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah.
I guess first, again, I want to just get back to the hockey just for a second. So the hat trick. So for the non-hockey players, what is the hat trick?
So a hat trick is when a player scores 3 goals in a game. So there's 2 kinds of hat tricks. Like, you could score 3 goals in a game, but in between your 3 goals, somebody else scores. I mean, they still consider it a hat trick, but there's a natural hat trick when you actually score 3 goals consecutively in a row,
Oh,
which is
wow.
pretty rare. It's pretty rare, but it does happen. So you have your natural hat trick and your hat tricks, 3 goals in a game.
Gotcha. How common is that? Did you ever have one of those? And is that common?
I had one in my career. I had one. So not overly common. I mean, you mean the high end goal scorers, they score more obviously, but yeah, but not super common.
Not super common. And was that game, was that a pro game or back in the early days?
Yeah, no, pro game. Yeah.
Oh, it was.
I had several in college, but I had one playing in the NHL when I was with Vancouver, actually playing against Calgary. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. All right, perfect. Are you more, as far as yourself, are you kind of more of a night owl or a morning person?
I'd say probably neither.
Neither?
I love my sleep. I love going to bed early.
There you go.
But again, if I got to be on the water, no problem getting up. Yeah, so we'll go with a morning person. Yeah,
so the morning person.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about this. I was hearing some, Michael Jordan. Somebody was talking about him. Is that I think it was Steve Kerr, but they were saying on a podcast, they're like, if the guy would have slept, imagine how great he would have been. I guess Jordan didn't sleep at all. I guess he was kind of up all night. So, which is amazing, right? To imagine, Jordan didn't really sleep, right? Or he had some weird hours of sleep, but good. So, so we got the hat trick one checked off the box. What we mentioned, an old player. What is the, and you mentioned Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. I mean, who is the next Gretzky after Gretzky? Who's number 2?
Man, like Lemieux's right up there for sure.
Yeah, Lemieux.
For guys that I played against, like if you talk to like hockey historians, the debate, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, those guys are always in the top
right.
3, 4. It's funny, you go from generation to generation. You talk to my dad. My dad's like, no, Bobby Orr hands down. He's the best player ever, but I was lucky enough to play. Like Lemieux was just, he's a big 6'5", but the finesse he had,
huge.
And huge man. But God.
Pittsburgh, right? Was he?
He was in Pittsburgh. Yeah, he was in Pittsburgh. But in today's game, I mean, I think there's a guy playing now that could alter all of this, and he's actually playing in Edmonton, and his name's Connor McDavid, and he's a freak of nature. He is.
Oh, really? Big guy?
Not big, but how fast he is. I mean, the game is fast, but he has another level of fast, and just how he can operate and make decisions at such a high level. Like he's leading the scoring race right now by 28 points which is unheard of. Like he's a generational player.
Gotcha. When do the playoffs? Give us that rundown. When does the hockey playoffs start?
Yeah, hockey playoffs, they usually start mid-April. Regular season kind of goes until the end of the first week, and then playoffs start that second week of April.
Oh, perfect. This is good. So we're going to be, by the time this is going live, it's going to be right in the playoffs. Who do you have a team, like a favorite? Are you sticking with? Do you know hockey well still?
I still follow it. Like I think the East has a lot more depth than the West this year. Out West, like Colorado won it last year, and they had a bit of a slow start this year, but they're getting healthy. I think they're probably a dangerous team out West. I also like Dallas out West. They've had a good year. They got good goaltending. But out East, I mean, there can be like literally 5 teams that can win it. But I'm going to say Boston's having a year that they could set the all-time mark for the most points in the season. Like
oh really? Wow.
Their year's been unbelievable. So I'd have to say, Boston's probably gets the nod out in the East.
Yeah, Boston. Who is the I'm drawing a blank. Who is the amazing goaltender? I think it was Colorado back in the day. Who was the?
Well, so they had a goalie there. I mean, there's been a lot, but Patrick Waugh played there.
Waugh.
He came from Montreal, but goaltenders. Dominic Hasek is always a guy that's mentioned as one of the best ever. Marty Brodeur, Roberto Luongo. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Good buddy of mine, Marty Turco. He was an all-star a few times. Played in Dallas.
There you go. Perfect. What is so we talked a little bit about the trip. So, but if you had one trip you can plan for fishing, in the future that you haven't done yet, what is that one big one? Other than we'll take out Chile,
Yeah. Well, the Chile one's going to be cool. A couple. There's this lodge I've been looking at in the Amazon, which looks really cool, like fly fishing. It's called Kenjama Lodge. I've been eyeballing that for a long time, so I might have to reach out to them at some point. But I would like to do another tarpon trip at some point. I know there's some huge tarpon, like in Nicaragua, down in Central America, some countries there. So another tarpon trip is on the list at some point for sure.
Perfect. Nice, Brendan. Well, I think, again, I could keep you here all night or all day, but, I think I'll respect your time here and roll out of here. I appreciate, everything you're doing out there, with the fly fishing or with the show, the fishing show. I mean, it's awesome. You're doing a great job, and we'll definitely be keeping up with you on all that, and keep up the great work.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah, it was fun chatting with you. Brought back a lot of good memories, and I loved chatting, fishing, and in my past career, hockey. So I appreciate the time as well.
Awesome, man. All right, well, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, man. Take care, Dave.
So there it is. wetflyswing.com/432. 432. Want to quick remind you before we head out of here today, Northern Lights Lodge, Curtis Skeed and the crew, they have an amazing place. This is wilderness fishing with the lodge. Big fish, lots of fish. They've even got stream with bull tribe. We've talked a lot about this, but Northern Lights Lodge right now, wetflyswing.com/trips. If you're interested in heading up on this trip, I will follow up with you by email, maybe by phone. If you add your information there, we'll let you know if we have some slots available right now. Quick listener shout out before we get out of here. Jonathan Cervellian. Jonathan has been a long supporter of this podcast. Always good to see Jonathan's name out there. Giving him a shout out on Instagram at, I'm not even going to be able to say this. I don't think so. I am not quite sure. Shun DMX. I'm just going to spell it out. At DACHSUNDBMX. Does that make sense? Jonathan, shout out to you, brother. He let me know that Shandy, we should be getting Shandy on the podcast. So I am going to work on that. Shandy, if you're out there, give me a heads up. And I'm going to put this together for Jonathan and you, and we're going to get an episode together. So I want to say thank you, Jonathan, for giving the checking in with me, and appreciate you for supporting the podcast. If you want to check in with me anytime, Dave at Wetfly Swing or on social, I'd love to hear from you if you have time. What is going on? We've talked about what we have coming next. We are pumping out the content almost on a daily basis now. I hope you're enjoying it. And I hope to connect with you on the next one. I'm just going to take a quick peek because I already forgot what we have next. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got a bonus one for you. A Friday episode. We don't do Friday episodes every week, but this one is going to be one you got to stay tuned for. So if you don't know Jeff Liskay, now is the time. We've got the Great Lakes Dude podcast episode number 1 going live tomorrow. This is it. Jeff's going to do a cool intro on the Great Lakes. He has made his life around the Great Lakes, fishing every part of them, and he does a quick summary, a nice short episode, but it's a summary of the Great Lakes and all the resources and fishing opportunities. This is awesome. Episode number 1 of the Great Lakes Dude podcast. I'm excited for this because this is going to get Jeff on this podcast more often as the host. I'm not going to be there at all. This is Jeff's deal, just like Phil in the Littoral Zone. This is our second big podcast, super guru, who is going on his own, and I'm excited to hear this one tomorrow. All right, we got some good stuff going. If you have an idea for a potential podcast series or season or guest, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. We've got some more stuff coming here. I'm actually going to be thinking fly tying. I'm talking to somebody right now about fly tying. If you're listening, you know who I'm talking about. If we can put this together, it's going to be awesome. I don't quite know what the idea is going to be. If you have an idea of how we could do a cool podcast about fly tying, that would be a good something to hear from. So I'm going to leave it at that for tonight. I'm going to get out of here and get rolling because I need to get some rest. I'm going to get some rest tonight. I'm going to get some sleep, and I'm just going to go for it. So hope you are having a good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I appreciate you for stopping in today and checking out the podcast, and for supporting and sharing if you had a chance. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.